You are shameless. The 70-year-old heavenly human stage expert became furious. The thin man laughed in anger. Mr. Reggio, you really don't know what's good for you. Who do you think you are? How dare you order us around? As Aaron's men, you betrayed him and joined kids in this trash world. You don't have the dignity of a heavenly human stage expert at all. You have really embarrassed us. Idiot. Don't you think that we don't know your true strength? A man who is 600 or 700 years old is still the first layer of the heavenly human stage. Well, I'm afraid that he won't have any hope of advancing in his life. Since you're playing with fire, I'll help you clean up the Keen family sect. As he spoke, the man's eyes turned cold. A slender green sword suddenly appeared in his hand, and like a cobra, it stabbed Mr. Reggio. Such a useless skill. How childish, Mr. Reggio said with disdain. His index finger gently moved, and the long blade was unsheathed. A saber chi instantly burst out. The thin man's heart trembled, and he felt numbness in his hands. With a muffled groan, he quickly retreated, looking at Mr. Reggio in disbelief. What? Beetle, you have advanced to the second layer of the heavenly human stage. Well, that's impossible with your talent unless you took a heaven-defying earth pill. What's going on? The man's face turned pale with fright. Faint smile appeared on Mr. Reggio's face. All of you are probably thinking about how I broke through to the second layer. In fact, it wasn't that difficult. It's all thanks to Mr. Lee. It only took me a little more than a day to break through to the next layer. So now is the time for you all to choose. If you're willing to join Mr. Lee and follow him, you will have a great chance of advancing in such a short period of time, just like me. It's not impossible to reach the mid-heavenly human stage or even the high rank of heavenly human stage. Nonsense. The monk from the Buddhist sect sneered and said sarcastically, What do you think that kid is? Is he the legendary heavenly pill master? Can he refine high-grade pills? Can he greatly increase one's comprehension and talent? In the small cloud heaven, there are only a few heavenly pill masters. How could someone like him be so advanced? What right do you have to ask a heavenly pill master to concoct a pill for you? Even a 9th layer of heavenly human stage has to try his best to curry favor with you. Do you think trash like you deserves it? I am indeed not worthy, Mr. Reggio said faintly. It is precisely because I feel that I am not worthy that Mr. Lee thinks so highly of me, and I am very grateful. But your ignorance is ridiculous. There are many hidden capable people in this world. Anyway, Mr. Lee has a grudge against your Buddhist sect. The monk was so angry that the corner of his mouth trembled. His eyes were filled with hatred, but he didn't dare to make a move. The difference between a first heaven and a second heaven was like night and day. If he made a move against the other guy, the outcome would be dire. They could easily kill him now. Seeing that his opponent didn't make a move, a sarcastic smile appeared on Mr. Reggio's face. He turned to look at the others and said, I don't want to waste my time talking to you. You have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity here. As for why I advanced to the second heaven, I'm not afraid to tell all of you that this is thanks to a heaven understanding pill given to me by Mr. Lee. With that and the creation pills, high-level breaking limit pills, soul nurturing pills, and all sorts of other pills, I was able to reach the second heaven. The first 10 people to join Mr. Lee's side will get an Earth-grade pill. But think it through before making a decision. Don't think about tricking me to obtain pills. If you betray us, there's only one outcome for you, and that is death. As he spoke, Mr. Reggio also took out 10 earth pills and controlled the genuine chi to completely wrap around them, making them float in midair. The pills were circulating with a bright light. It emitted a fresh fragrance that made one feel intoxicated. Everyone shut their mouths. There were no longer any doubts. There were only 10 rounds of pills in front of them. James looked at Mr. Reggio with surprise, and the corners of his mouth revealed a strange smile. Although Mr. Reggio's talent was very poor, James had to admit that he was indeed a genius, and he'd learned from him. Although he wasn't as charismatic and irresistible as James, the temptation was enough. First, it was the intimidation of martial power, then the temptation of a promise, and finally, the temptation of the actual pill. What impressed James the most was that Mr. Reggio pulled the pills he had gotten from him prior. He was using his own fortune to recruit these experts. These are real earth pills, and you have 10 of them. Oh, you're so rich already? Everyone knows that only a respectable earth pill master can refine these. Basil, what's the trick here? The thin man licked his lips with a greedy expression. This kid has unmatched treasure in his possession. Joining his team would mean offending all the major powers in Small Cloud Heaven. How could we be so stupid? Give me an earth pill. I can help him with one thing, but only within a month. You think I'm negotiating with you? Mr. Reggio looked coldly at the man and said, You are just a mere first layer of heavenly human stage trash. Do you really think that Mr. Lee won't be able to do it without you? You're worth an earth pill just because you do something? You wish. With your puny strength, Mr. Lee can take you down with a single slap. What use do I have for you? I'll say it one last time. 3 minutes. I'll give you 3 minutes to make your choice. Since you all know that Mr. Lee obtained the treasure, then you should know even more. If he lives long enough, he will reach the 9th layer of the heavenly human stage and shatter the void. He might even surpass the 4 great kings. You should all think about it carefully. Remember, you only have 3 minutes, and I won't wait a second longer. After saying that, Mr. Reggio swaggered to James's back. He was looking down at these people as he waited. Everyone was still hesitating, and their facial expressions kept changing. They had to admit that Mr. Reggio's offer was very attractive. It was no longer a secret who this James Lee was. This man would definitely become the strongest person in the world if he didn't die before that. And if they joined him now, they would be considered elders, and they would have a bright future ahead of them. However, this opportunity came with a risk. Currently, all the experts in the world were against James. No one knew if he could survive this. Watching them struggle with the decision, James was calm and composed. Finally, he spoke up. I know what you're thinking, but there's nothing that is free in this world. Now that you're the first to arrive here, it means that you're not strong enough. It means also that you're just cannon fodder to the people at the top. From ancient times until now, which of the past human emperor successors were easy to deal with? Which one of them could be killed by a first layer of heavenly human stage expert like you? So all of you have come here in advance just to hinder a human emperor successor's cultivation and growth, and to create as much trouble as possible? In the end, the Small Cloud Heaven would fully open, and those experts would take action. Isn't that right? You might get pills that will help you advance, or you won't get anything. After those words, everyone began to think of retreating. James was right. From ancient times until today, even the weakest General Ruff from 1,000 years ago had yet to mature. He was extremely strong. How could he be killed by a first-grade heavenly human stage expert? If it weren't for the fact that General Ruff was surrounded by enemies and knew that he was going to die, and at the same time he didn't want to run away because of his so-called brothers, he wouldn't have died if he didn't attack a middle or high-rank heavenly human stage expert. Now James was even stronger than General Ruff. Was this really something they could deal with? As for whether those experts from Small Cloud Heaven could kill their opponent, they had no idea. If they attacked him, most of them would die. In Small Cloud Heaven, your strength is in a strange state. You're not useless, but you're still a few levels away from those who are well developed. Looking at the wavering people, James spoke frankly. I don't care if you go to any higher level of power. You're just at the very edge of being respectable, a little stronger than those ordinary rogue cultivators. If this continues, do you all want to break through to the second layer of heavenly human stage? Without a great opportunity like this, it will be impossible for you to achieve it in your lifetime. As for the lifespan of the first layer of heavenly human stage, 1,000 years was the limit. At 800 years old, all of your body indicators will drop and your strength will start to decline. At that time, you would struggle on your last breath, waiting for the end of your lifespan. And then, there will be endless darkness and desolation. Everyone felt a shiver run down their spines. In a trance, they could already see their own future. The shabby thatched huts gave off rotten smells. They were all alone inside, dragging their rotting bodies in an endless terror as they went through the final moments of their lives. When they thought of this, they gasped for breath, no longer daring to think about it. They really reached that step. They believed they might not die of old age. They would not have the courage to face it. In a world like small cloud heaven where the strong preyed on the weak, without strength there was nothing. Even if they wanted to live peacefully in their old age, was that realistic? Whatever your path, dying of old age is marked by loneliness, James said softly, his voice carrying a desolate tone. He said solemnly, if you join me, I do not promise how you will develop or become an overlord of a region. However, as long as you're motivated and wholeheartedly follow me, I can at least prolong your lifespan by another 1,000 years. Another 1,000 years. Everyone was amazed to hear that. 2,000 years ago, what kind of concept was this? This was something that could only be achieved by a sixth layer of heavenly human stage at the very least. When the sixth layer thought of this realm, everyone felt a wave of yearning. If they were at the sixth layer, they would be able to hold their own in any sect. No one knew if what James said was true or not, but when they saw his confidence, they felt like they could trust him. Everyone, don't listen to this kid's nonsense. How can he help you all break through to the sixth layer of heavenly human stage? Don't be fooled by this guy. The leading monk from the Buddhist sect shouted at the crowd as his heart skipped a beat. They deeply understood that James would never let them go because they were from the Buddhist sect. And James and the Buddhist sect had an irreconcilable feud. If these people were really persuaded to join him, we have lived for a few hundred years and we're not children. The best choice is unclear. Can you promise us that this is not a trap? James looked at the expert of the Buddhist sect indifferently and said, I'm giving you my word. I won't make things difficult for you. If you choose to refuse, I'll let you go this time. However, when I see you next time and you attack me, I won't show you any mercy. I will kill you all. There are many people in the world who want me dead. I don't want more enemies to be after me. Shameless boasting, the monk sneered and said disdainfully. There's not many of you. We have dozens of heavenly human stage experts on our side. What can you do for them? You only recruited the 24 trainers. Do you think you can kill us? If you think you've got what it takes, try attacking now and see how painful your death will be. James looked to his side and said in a flat tone, Samson, let's not waste any more time and just attack him. Fulfill his request and teach him a lesson. Are you trying to scare us? The monk was mocking them, but before he could finish his words, he saw a palm descending from the sky, enveloping him within. His entire body didn't have the strength to resist as he fell to the ground with a loud bang. Power of Aramis, ninth layer of heavenly human stage. Why is there a ninth layer of heavenly human stage here? He let out a blood-curdling scream. Under the tremendous force, the monk didn't even have the time to take a breath. His bones were shattered into pieces, and he crumbled to the ground. Everyone looked away in horror. Their hands and feet felt cold. How precise was the control of this genuine chi? It controlled that person's body, crushing him to death. Is this the power of a ninth layer of Heavenly Human Stage's elements? But why would a powerful ninth layer be here? There's still 20 seconds left, James said calmly as he looked at the time as if nothing had happened. Everyone shivered. Apart from the 3 Heavenly Human Stage experts from the Buddhist sect, the rest of them looked at each other and immediately made up their minds. They cupped their fists and greeted James. "We're joining you, Mr. Lee. We will go wherever you tell us for the rest of our lives." The existence of a ninth layer of Heavenly Human Stage was simply unimaginable, and he took orders from James Lee? Who could be a match for such a man? That fool from the Buddhist sect had died a miserable death because of his power. What did that result prove? It proved that the power behind James was immeasurable. No wonder Mr. Reggio and the others were so loyal to him. Who would dare to resist absolute strength? Initially, James didn't use any force to threaten them, which left a good impression. If this ninth layer guy showed himself in the beginning, no one would dare to argue with him. Of course, this was only one of the reasons for them to switch sides. The offer was indeed a one-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and this ninth level guy was the last straw. The corner of James's mouth rose slightly, and he said faintly, "Are you sure? If you want to change your mind now, it's not too late. I am a man of my word. If you don't attack me in the future, I will not touch you. At least, I won't intentionally target you. Let's get this ugly thing out of the way. If you're only saying you'll be loyal, then stab me in the back. Consider yourself warned." "Definitely not." Everyone's heart skipped a beat as they hurriedly promised James that they were serious about their decision. If anyone dared to try to be disloyal at this point, they were only asking for it. Making James Lee their enemy would be very unwise. "Very good," James nodded and said, "In order to prove yourselves, you can send the 3 of them to hell. As for those people who are determined to kill me, I won't let them go. All right, I'll leave these 3 people to you. With over 70 people against the 3 of them, there should be no pressure at all, right?" When he said that, the remaining 3 experts of the Buddhist sect looked shocked. They were filled with fear and they started to retreat. They looked at the people around them with vigilance and said, "What are you doing? Are you really going to kill us? We're the true members of the Buddhist sect. If you touch us, you'll face endless revenge from the Buddhist sect. None of you will survive." A Heavenly Human Stage expert said in a cold tone, "We don't know if we'll survive or not. But what I do know is that we'll definitely live longer than all of you. All of you are merely first layer of Heavenly Human Stage experts, and you're unimportant figures in the Buddhist sect. I don't even know if the sect will remember you, so why are you threatening us? Oh, I can't stand it anymore. I'll just send you on your way right now." The man's face turned cold. He attacked the 3 men from the Buddhist sect. With 1 man leading the way, the other 70 attacked as well. A big crowd of Heavenly Human Stage experts attacked at the same time. How could the 3 men from the Buddhist sect withstand their attacks? All of them were instantly devoured. They didn't even have a chance to cry out in pain before their aura was completely gone. Watching this battle that had no suspense, Dorian yawned with boredom. He looked as if it were only natural. "I knew this would be the result. Who would dare to act so impudently when I'm here?" At this moment, no matter what his boss did wasn't going to shock him. He had no choice but to stay with him for a long time. After being constantly influenced by James, Dorian's horizons had become much broader. He was merely a first layer of Heavenly Human Stage expert. How could he be qualified to follow a leader? James surpassed the Heavenly Pillmaster level, so it was an honor to be taken in by him. He was a man who was about to reach the great achievement level Earth Pillmaster. Looking at these guys, he felt they were too weak, even if they were now his underlings. In any case, he was an Earth Pillmaster, and his subordinates were at least the 4th layer of Heavenly Human Stage, right?
"Dorian, I really admire you.
Although I have seen the boss's power many times and how powerful he is, every single time I see him in action, it shakes me up," Angelica said as she took a deep breath to ease her mood. Dorian shook his head and replied, "Being around people like this requires a strong heart first. And do you know that? You should have the look of contempt in your eyes. Look at these heavenly human stage experts. Are they really powerful?" "They are indeed only the first layer of the heavenly human stage after all," Angelica said hesitantly. "But this number is indeed frightening." "That's right. You should think that way," Dorian earnestly explained. "When you see such a person in the future, the first reaction in your head should be to be a regular person, not an expert. Do you know that? A mere first level of heavenly human stage, what kind of expert is he? Also, what kind of pills will you find in the future? Don't make a big fuss over it. As James's followers, you will only bring shame to him, just like those earth pills. They're just ordinary pills, they're not valuable. As for the heavenly level pills, that's something worth looking at. Do you understand what I mean?" Well, I understand. Angelica was drenched in a cold sweat. She was completely defeated by Dorian's logic. Heavenly human stage experts were useless and earth pills were trash? What wasn't trash in this world? But as she thought about it carefully, it seemed to make sense. His boss was so awesome that he didn't take anything seriously. James Lee surpassed Heavenly Pillmaster, and he was now above everything else. Listening to the conversation between these two, even the 9th layer of Heavenly Human Stage expert, Samson, was drenched in a cold sweat. The corner of his mouth twitched. If these words were said by someone else, he would think that person was an idiot, but it was Dorian describing James, and he really couldn't argue with that. He sprinkled the earth pill on the ground like candy. Who was amazing as him? After the death of the 3 experts from the Buddhist sect, everything returned to normal. The 70-plus men stood there solemnly and looked at James with reverence. His eyes swept across the crowd with satisfaction. Finally, his eyes fell upon the man who attacked him first, and he asked, "What's your name?" "Sir, my name is Terrence McKay," he said hastily. There was a trace of excitement on his dark and skinny face. He was about to become Human Emperor's successor subordinate. It was almost an honor. "Terrence McKay, huh?" James murmured and smiled. He threw out a pill. "There are only a few people in this world who will step up and fight the way you did. I'll give you a heaven understanding pill. From now on, you'll be Mr. Reggio's assistant." "Another heaven understanding pill?" The eyes of the 20 heavenly human stage experts behind Mr. Reggio were wide open. They were in disbelief. This heaven understanding pill could only be refined by an earth pill master of the perfection level. The pill that Mr. Reggio had given them just now was something they were extremely envious of. In just a short period of time, James gave away another heaven understanding pill? This excited them to no end. This. Terrence's originally dark face immediately flushed red when he saw the pill. The corner of his mouth trembled with excitement. He didn't know how to express his feelings. James didn't want to care about what these people were thinking. He said to Mr. Reggio, "You and Terrence will lead these people and manage them. Just wait for my orders at any time. You guys stay here and get to know each other. I have some matters to attend to. Let's go." "Yes, sir." Mr. Reggio and Terrence nodded solemnly and agreed. They watched James leave. He walked out of the Imperial Forest Court, narrowed his eyes, and said to himself, 100 heavenly human stage experts. Not too many, not too few. It should be enough for now. "Sir, why do you have so many heavenly human stage experts?" Dorian asked curiously. "Why do you think? To grow my power, of course," James said helplessly. "I'm now the enemy of the entire world. I have to rely on myself.
I'm not confident that I could survive with most people wanting to kill me. I have my own faction. At the very least, I'll be able to provide some resistance. And besides, there are some things that I need to do.
But they're too weak, so they could be put to use for the time being,
Dorian sighed. James shook his head and smiled. I'm not trying to put them to use right away. I really want to nurture them. They are weak, but it's not a big deal. If I use pills to help them develop, I can get them into the 6th layer of the heavenly human stage. Strength isn't important. Loyalty is. These people are the outer circle figures of the sect in Small Cloud Heaven. It's relatively easy for them to accept them. Also, as long as I'm kind and generous, there's no reason for them to betray us.
Well, I don't know much about the human heart.
Dorian looked slightly embarrassed. He smiled and said,
Sir, where are we going now?
We're going to see how Anne and Arlene are doing. They've never walked out of the shadows before, James said with a smile. New York, President Booth's room. When James came over, Anne, Arlene, Senator Langston were all there. Everyone was chatting very happily. Seeing James come back, the 2 girls' eyes lit up. One of them hung on James's arm.
Sir, you're finally back. When we saw Macy come back all beaten up, we were worried.
Macy? James was stunned for a moment before he suddenly realized something. He smiled and said, You're talking about the little girl who poured the coffee, right? She'll be fine. It's not a big deal. I took care of it. President Booth looked at his daughter and the other woman holding James's arm. He had a bad feeling in his heart. He said in a gluttonous tone,
James, you're very lucky. You have all the good things one can enjoy in a lifetime.
James's face turned red. He knew what President Booth was thinking. He grinned and said, No, I have to thank you. If you didn't send Anne to me, where would I have found such a nice girl? Oh, right, father-in-law, don't forget you have to give me a special permit for my marriage later. You have to leave me more than 10 empty spaces. When the time comes, all the photos will be posted. Although James didn't care much about this small notebook and the relationship between him and the girls, he couldn't prove anything. But women always care about these things. He had to make every single one of them famous. Anyway, he had to settle the matter now. President Booth's face darkened, and the corner of his mouth twitched.
You want me to justify polygamy? You have a lot of ideas, my friend. If I really give you this new regulation, will I still be respected? On one hand, the country has a monogamy system, and on the other hand, what about my daughter?
President Booth felt very aggrieved in his heart. Damn it, his own daughter was still in. If he really didn't do it for James, wouldn't his daughter lose her married status? As the president, you have to have some self-restraint and build a good reputation, James said in a serious tone. President Booth was speechless. When Senator Langston saw this, he couldn't help but laugh. He tried holding it in and coughed a few times. He changed the topic and said seriously, James, it's good to see that you're back now. We have some things to discuss with you. I hope you can make a decision. Let's see what Russia and Spain are planning. They've stopped their attacks in the last 2 days. Senator Langston told James everything that happened in the past few days. Did these people stop attacking? This is nothing but the calm before the storm. James narrowed his eyes and said slowly, If I'm not wrong, they're waiting for more people to come and make plans. In Small Cloud Heaven, many heavenly human stage experts had come. There are naturally many from other countries too, and at this point, this war will probably be the heavenly human stage experts.
But I don't understand, President Booth said doubtfully. I can understand their previous actions. In the end, the attack on America was just a pretense to lure Brooks out. But now he has come out, and according to your plan, your father has already focused everyone's attention on you. Why are they attacking America? There's no need for that.
You're wrong. They aren't attacking America. It's me, James said. To think that they could think of such a method. The attack on America is just a front. I don't believe that they would dare to attack me now, but this might not be a test. If they found out that the country was in shambles, if the internal strife was so intense that they might eliminate the country altogether, at the very least it would cause the development of the United States to regress by 20 years. The possibility of this happening is not very high. After all, in this era of advanced technology, martial power is not everything. Even if the shattering void is nothing compared to nuclear bombs, they will die if they come into contact with it. But there is far more than one force that can deal with me. They are afraid of each other, so they thought of this method. I'm afraid that their only goal right now is to pressure you, the President of the United States, to hand me over, right?
According to what you said, this is possible.
Booth's eyes darkened and he said,
I did have too many scruples before. If you were an ordinary person, I wouldn't be so willing to get involved in this mess. After all, this was going against so many experts and small cloud heaven. But I can't turn back now. This is something they didn't expect.
Don't be so dramatic. They're unlucky if they go against us, James said with a smile. If the experts of the three domains work together, it might be really difficult to deal with them. But they aren't united, so we don't have to worry about them. Even if they are strong, they're manageable.
Then what do you think we should do?
President Booth asked in a serious tone. It's very simple. Since they're waiting, we will not make them wait any longer. We'll attack immediately. A cold smile emerged on James's face. Take advantage of the fact that the people of their two countries are not here to completely destroy the hundreds of thousands of troops. Isn't this a good idea? The country uses its people as a foundation to nurture a good army. This will definitely take several decades. Although the individual combat strength of each soldier is much lower than martial cultivator soldiers, they're best at the group combat and use high-tech weapons. This is enough to make up for their lack of individual combat strength.
Kill all the troops from both countries?
President Booth's eyes suddenly lit up. He said with a burning gaze,
This is good thinking. If the people of Small Cloud Heaven want to return home, they can't stay on this side. If we kill all of the troops, it will absolutely be a fatal blow for these two countries. In fact, we might even have the chance to destroy them later.
Once chaos ensues, it'll be a very good opportunity for America to expand. James nodded and said, It doesn't matter whether we destroy the other countries or not. The important thing is to take advantage of this opportunity to clean up the dregs in America. Let the United States become truly unified. You should use this opportunity to create more experts to guard the country. If you could firmly control this kind of power, then we would become the #1 superpower in the world. Perhaps the true rise of our country will happen in your hands, and you will be the founder of a prosperous America. You will never be forgotten.
Kid, only you know how to be this persuasive. Even I feel my blood boiling because of your words.
President Booth looked at James with a bitter smile. He felt helpless. I told you the truth, James shrugged and smiled. Since you've decided, you have the 6 heavenly human stage experts on your hands, and they are all under your control. I'll send my subordinates, Eddie and Angelica, to you. 8 heavenly human stage experts and 1 million soldiers will be enough for you. President Booth shook his head and sighed.
You, kid, feel like you're the president. You were born with the temperament of a leader. Speaking of which, didn't you take in many heavenly human stage experts? Aren't you going to use them? You're only sending 2 of them to me?
Sir, those people can't be moved. I can still use them later when the time comes. If I show them now, the enemy will be on guard. I spent so much effort to subdue them. I'm not going to let them waste time on a small thing, James said. All right, I will leave this matter to you. I should get some rest. Anne? Arlene? Why don't we go and sleep for a while? When they heard James suddenly address them, Anne and Arlene's pretty faces instantly turned red with embarrassment. The two girls slightly nodded, extremely shy. President Booth rolled his eyes at that. Damn it, this kid was getting more and more impudent. He was flirting with his daughter right in front of him. This made President Booth angry. The great treasure that he carefully protected for so many years had been delivered to James's hands just like that. The only thing worth rejoicing about that was that this fellow was not a pig, but a decent one amongst men. When they entered the house, the two girls were shy, but Arlene was a little bolder. She said softly, "James, you should take a shower. It'll help you feel comfortable." I will start a bath for you," Anne replied with a red face. "What are you guys doing?" James coughed awkwardly. He said innocently, "Well, I thought you were kidnapped. You were tired and worried about me. I thought I would let you sleep and rest. What are you thinking?" The two girls were immediately embarrassed. Arlene pouted. "You deliberately said that in such a suggestive way to confuse everyone." "I did no such thing. Why would I think of that?" James shouted as if he were offended. "I just care about you guys and want to let you rest. Besides, the president would be very mad at me." Arlene bit her lip and said shyly, "You, James Lee, you could do whatever you want. As your personal maid, I understand you. It's my honor to serve you. I just don't know if Anne minds." "I? How could I mind? You just have to decide." Anne was like a scared little bunny. Her pretty face looked unbearably shy, and that classical beauty of hers came through. She was very attractive in that moment. James had strong willpower, but even he had to gulp. He could swear he really didn't mean anything by his invitation. He only wanted to refine the 10 fragrance revival pills that Samson needed. Who knew that these girls would misunderstand him? But after all, he was a man, and he decided that if it was too hard to resist, why not enjoy it? Although this wasn't his intention, since he was here, there was no reason to say no. The VIP room in New York was quite luxurious. The large jacuzzi occupied half the bathroom and could accommodate 4 or 5 people at the same time. Lying in the bathtub, James was so comfortable that he couldn't help but close his eyes. The corner of James's mouth twitched as he said, "Oh, this jacuzzi's great." Anne's face was filled with joy. She was extremely shy, but nodded in agreement, while Arlene giggled too. When James came out of the room, it was already the next morning. After stretching his body, he felt refreshed. When President Booth saw James, he felt very uncomfortable and asked,
"Where's my daughter?"
"Oh, she's too tired. She's still sleeping." James grinned and said, "Sir, how was your night? Did you sleep well last night?"
"Did I sleep well? Are you kidding me? You were laughing with the girls so loudly that I didn't sleep a wink. If I'd have known earlier, I would have gone back to sleep in my hut."
President Booth was very unhappy. "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Thought the walls were soundproof." "Mr. President, did you eavesdrop on us in the middle of the night?" James said with a sarcastic smile.
"What? Why would I do such a thing?"
President Booth blushed and denied it. James looked at the president for a moment, smiled without saying anything else. He said to Samson, who was beside him, "Oh, Samson, I've finished refining the 10 fragrance revival pills. Take a look." He tossed a few pills to Samson.
10 fragrance rebirth pill. You've already refined it."
The man was immediately shocked. When he saw the pill, he was overjoyed.
This is really the 10 fragrance revival pill. How did you do it so quickly? This is great. My son is finally saved."
Samson teared up. He had already given up hope, but now that he had obtained the legendary pill, his mood soared. "I simply did what I promised. I kept my word." James shrugged and added with a smile, This pill isn't as difficult to refine as I thought it would be. It's just that this pill is rather advanced, and ordinary people simply don't need it. Hence, no one ever refines this pill. However, Samson, I'm very curious. How did your son get injured? With the mention of the past, Samson's face stiffened. His eyes were filled with hatred.
There is a special force in small cloud heaven that's independent of the 4 large kingdoms. They are ridiculously strong. Even the 4 kings turned a blind eye to it. That is dark force. Peter and his crew aren't kind people. They have done a lot of evil things. They took all the experts in the world for their own use. Furthermore, they seem to have the ability to create experts. Those who are weak will only be first-class experts in a few years. I have no idea what they've done. They're truly terrifying.
And you're being targeted by them. James narrowed his eyes and said slowly,
It's not me. My son.
Samson shook his head.
Although I didn't reach the 9th layer of heavenly human stage at that time, I was still at the peak of the 8th layer, and it wasn't easy for me to kill them, and convincing me to join them was even more ridiculous. You should know my personality. I'm not the kind of person who likes to be restrained. But I never thought that they would trick my son. When my son first entered the heavenly human stage, he was in high spirits. However, due to a lack of social experience, he was tricked into going into the dark force. He ended up fainting after he came out, and his soul was badly damaged. Even the inside of his body was in tatters as if it had been corroded by different medications. I was on good terms with the old sect master from Cloud Soaring Pavilion, who was also an Earth Pill Master, and he forcefully rescued my son. He would have died a long time ago.
At this point, Samson's hostility had reached its peak. A dark force, huh? What is that thing? James suddenly thought of something. He said in a deep voice, Are they researching the potential of the human body? There were people on America's side who developed and studied the potential of the human body. James didn't believe that this kind of thing had anything to do with Small Cloud Heaven. Monroe, Honeysett, and the other scientists were secret research teams of several countries.
I didn't know what exactly the dark force is. After my son got into trouble, I wanted to avenge him, but I had to save him first. I left Small Cloud Heaven and came here.
Samson furrowed his brows and continued,
But I know that the gift on this side has a certain connection with the dark forces on that side. I'm confused because the way they handle things is completely different. However, I can be sure that Alex must know what the evil dark force is.
Oh, how can you be so sure that Alex knows? James asked curiously.
When I first investigated the origin of this dark force, I found its shadow. In a fit of anger, I was ready to destroy it.
After he said that, the corner of Samson's mouth curled into a bitter smile.
When I attacked Alex, I regretted it. He was truly terrifying. That man didn't even fight back. He threw a simple punch and heavily injured me. If it weren't for the fact that he didn't want to kill me, I would have died long ago.
You fought with Alex, who was at his peak? James rolled his eyes and gave him a thumbs up. You're really brave to provoke those men alone. You're lucky you weren't beaten to death. James understood how terrifying Alex and his people were. Although their current strength was slightly lower, they were only recovering. James wouldn't feel surprised if he was told that they had reached the 9th layer of Heavenly Human stage within a day.
Who says so? If I knew that those 3 were so terrifying, I wouldn't have provoked them.
Samson smiled bitterly.
They didn't kill me. I can consider myself lucky. Alex had said that there was some relationship between him and them, but it was only a small one. They were not familiar with what the Dark Force had done. They were too lazy to understand.
Dark Force, huh? James secretly remembered this name. No matter what kind of power it was, as long as it didn't provoke him, he wouldn't bother with it. But if it came for him, he would teach it a good lesson. At some point, if he had the chance, he could ask Alex about it. However, he hadn't seen him make a move recently. Why was this guy so quiet recently? It's not like him at all.
Samson, if you're in a hurry, take this pill and save your son. If you don't succeed, then come and find me. I am a doctor after all,
James said with a smile when he saw the anxious look on Samson's face. The man nodded when he heard this. He looked at James with gratitude.
Thank you. My son is in New York. I'll go back and try to see if I could do something for him.
After Samson left, James and President Booth exchanged a few words before turning around and walking towards the garden.
Mr. Lee.
Seeing James coming over, the 100 heavenly human stage experts greeted him respectfully.
Oh, everyone's in good spirits.
James smiled at them.
I won't waste your time by talking too much. Since there's still some time left, I can help you guys increase your strength. The first layer of heavenly human stage is really too weak. It's very hard to find a use for you at this stage.
Increase our strength?
Was he going to give them pills as well? James didn't care what these people were thinking. He said to Mr. Reggio,
as their boss, you go first. Use the technique and ultimate skills that you are best at. It doesn't need to be too powerful, just use 30% of your strength and attack me. I'll point out the flaws in your technique and help you improve it. This way, even if your level hasn't improved, your actual combat ability and the power of your moves will still be at a higher level than before.
Oh?
The moment he said that, all the heavenly human stage experts present were dumbfounded. What did James just say? He wanted them to display their techniques in front of him to point out their flaws? How was this possible? They were all heavenly human stage experts, and they had mastered the minute subtleties, so they knew their techniques like the back of their hand. Their opponents didn't even know about their technique, and yet he wanted to give them guidance. Although James Lee was advanced, they really didn't believe his arrogance. What's wrong? Why are you all looking at me like that? James was puzzled for a moment, and then he said in a serious tone, you all probably think that I'll give you pills, right? They work well, but if a person wants to be truly powerful, you can't solely rely on pills. That's not how you become an expert. Your achievements in life would be very limited. Of course, as long as you're on my team, there will be no shortage of pills, but I won't give them to you randomly. I won't just give you pills that will completely overdraft your talents and forcefully increase your strength. It's not as important as you think. If your comprehension is high enough, each move and stance will reach a profound level. Even if you are the first layer of heavenly human stage, you can still fight a second layer of heavenly human stage. Hearing this, everyone felt ashamed. Indeed, what they thought of were the pills. To them, the increase in strength was almost negligible. How could it be as potent as the pills? Besides, James Lee was only in his 20s. In terms of talent, they couldn't catch up to him. But in terms of understanding their technique, could they have trained for nothing for the past few hundred years? Could they not even catch up to a young guy who had only lived for 20 years? All the heavenly human stage experts immediately straightened their back, their confidence surging. When it came to critiquing their techniques, they felt that they should be the ones giving James guidance. Even Mr. Reggio smiled to himself. Finally, he had something to be proud of. He said,
since Mr. Lee is interested, I will show you one of my blade techniques. The blade technique that I'm best at is the Wind Chaser Blade. It uses the natural attribute strength and will of the wind element to enhance the blade technique, creating a version that only belongs to me.
Okay. So you're skilled in the wind element, right? Let's give it a try then. Use the technique you're most proficient in and lower the power. Let me see how it goes, James said with a nod.
All right.
Mr. Reggio took a serious tone. The genuine chi on his body suddenly erupted, and he swung his blade. It carried a strong artistic conception and brought along the surrounding airflow. The wind blade was swift and powerful, but it was also like a stream of water, slicing through everything. This is the concept of win. To be able to ignore part of the opponent's defense from a certain point of view. This is indeed a good strategy, James smiled. He stretched out his hand and grabbed the chi sword. Then he shouted in a faint voice, "Scatter." The genuine chi sword mixed with the blade dispersed with a loud bang. They no longer existed.
What? How is that possible? I only used 30% of my strength, but you can't just easily disperse it. James, how did you do this?
Mr. Reggio stared in disbelief. If the opponent used the attribute armor to block his attack, he would be able to do it with just a slap. But he could clearly see the opponent was using the intent realm, and the same concept of wind was able to easily neutralize his attack. How was this possible? Well, your comprehension of the concept is pretty good, but there are too many flaws in your attack. You also shattered your wind chaser blade. It was unbearable to look at. James shook his head and continued. You're still a second layer of heavenly human stage. Even if you attack with all your strength, I will be able to defeat you within 10 moves. It won't be difficult for me at all. Mr. Reggio was unconvinced.
Since that's the case, then why won't you fight me?
This technique was his favorite one, and he was pretty strong at it. But now that James said it was weak, he didn't like hearing that one bit. You're currently in a restless state of mind. This is the worst thing to do when fighting an enemy, James said, looking at Mr. Reggio. With your current condition, I can guarantee that you won't last 10 moves before you lose. Of course, if you don't believe me, you can give it a try.
All right. Mr. Lee, I won't be gentle. I will only use 80% of my strength.
Mr. Reggio was eager to give it another try. After all, no matter how he looked at it, James was a peak great grandmaster stage. He was only a second layer of the heavenly human stage, and the gap between them was huge. And this was just a spar. He didn't want to hurt James just to prove his sword technique. Although he was James's subordinate, he also wanted to know his true strength. Use your full strength. If you only use 80% of your strength, I'm afraid you won't be convinced. James looked at Mr. Reggio meaningfully. There are so many people here watching. I think everyone wants a convincing reason, right? James understood that although these people had sided with him, they might not really trust him. They only sided with him because of the circumstances. So James wanted to take this opportunity to establish his authority so that these people would follow him wholeheartedly. And then he could truly control them. Looking at the gazes of the crowd, Mr. Reggio also understood what was going on. He nodded and said in a deep voice,
Mr. Lee, I hear you. I won't hold back. If you attack me, I'm going to make a move.
As soon as he said that, the surrounding people quickly retreated. Mr. Reggio's eyes focused, and the genuine chi on his body surged to the extreme. It poured into the treasured sword in his hand and slashed out.
Sun, moon, starry sky, slash.
One could see with the naked eye that the energy in Mr. Reggio's long sword was wreaking havoc. On the edge of the sword, there was flowing wind, which was like a stream of water constantly drifting like waves, all of it pouring towards James. There was a loud sound. Mr. Reggio's blade slashed down, fiercely smashing into James's wishful steel staff. It surrounded James's body, creating an endless storm. At the same time, the blade turned into 3 wind blades, and the other 2 slashed at James's shoulder.
Mr. Lee, I'm sorry. My attack is not that simple. You've fallen into my trap. How are you going to defend yourself? Do you Still think that my blade technique is full of flaws?
Mr. Reggio's eyes lit up with pride. You're right. This technique is really good. But it's just the element of surprise. If your opponent is prepared for it, this skill of yours will have zero effect. James smiled indifferently. His body split into 6. 2 of the genuine Chi clones easily received 2 of the 3 wind blades, and the other 3 clones rushed towards Mr. Reggio.
What? Genuine Chi clones?
Mr. Reggio was shocked. The attribute armor on his body condensed, and he was ready to withdraw his sword. It's too late. James shook his head and smiled. A strong wind started blowing around his body, and a strong force flew towards Mr. Reggio. Adding the element of wind suspending force, Mr. Reggio's movement suddenly became sluggish. He could only watch helplessly as the 3 strikes hit his body. There was a muffled sound as a huge force exploded on Mr. Reggio's body. The attribute armor on his body cracked, and his entire body was sent flying by this huge force, and he fell heavily onto the ground. Mr. Reggio couldn't believe it. He was a second layer of heavenly human stage, and he was the first one to attack, but he couldn't even withstand a single attack from James. How was this possible? More importantly, why did James seem to have been prepared for this? He was so thorough with his moves. He had the most perfect response.
One move. Just one move and he lost. How is that possible? I didn't even see the entire battle clearly. How could it be so fast? I was just distracted for a moment, and the battle ended.
Everyone was discussing in disbelief. If James could really defeat a second layer of heavenly human stage with just a single strike, his strength would surely scare them to death. He was only in his 20s, and his cultivation base was only at the peak Great Grandmaster stage. Even if he could fight someone stronger than him, this was a little too much.
Mr. Reggio definitely didn't go easy on us. Even we can feel his abnormal strength. Besides, there's no need to do that,
Terrence said in a serious tone.
It was James who saw through Mr. Reggio's attack long ago. Otherwise, he wouldn't have lost so easily. But I don't understand how he saw through it. This is unbelievable.
James put away the wishful steel staff and stepped forward. He stretched out his hand and pulled Mr. Reggio up. There was a faint smile on his face. What's wrong? Are you all right? I don't think he's too hurt, right?
Thank you for showing mercy.
Mr. Reggio smiled bitterly. He said dejectedly,
Mr. Lee, I lost.
He was a dignified second layer of the heavenly human stage, but he had never fought a peak Great Grandmaster stage before, and he'd even been defeated by his opponent with a single strike. This had completely shattered his confidence. Right now, he was wondering whether it was because his opponent was too strong or because he was useless. It doesn't matter if you won or lost. You have to know where you lost and what you got from this battle, James said seriously. Do you understand what I said before?
I don't.
Mr. Reggio shook his head and said,
As a heavenly human stage, it is very easy for me to adjust my mentality. I'm not impatient either. You're too strong.
James smiled and looked at the other experts. He said, As the person in charge, Mr. Reggio might not be able to tell. But as spectators, have any of you seen through his problem? Everyone was at a loss. They were all martial cultivators. Why would they think about such a detailed question? But Terrence pondered for a moment and said hesitantly,
Perhaps I know where the problem lies. In a battle between experts, the first step is definitely the key. After all, under the circumstances of not knowing the opponent's ability, using one's full strength was not a wise action. Wasting genuine chi aside, it would also give the enemy an opportunity.
Everyone's heart skipped a beat. They finally understood what the problem was. Even Mr. Reggio was shocked. He smiled bitterly. Terrence is right. This is the real problem. James looked at Terrence, impressed. He explained, in a battle between strong experts, the main thing is to test each other. This helps find out the ability of the enemy and to make all kinds of preparations. Therefore, in a battle, the first attack should use up 70% of their strength, saving 30% for future troubles. If you've used all of his strength at once and didn't heavily injure the enemy, you won't have any chance to block attacks. The enemy would beat you up. Mr. Reggio, you don't even know my fighting style and ability. You used your full strength the moment you started, but your attack didn't work. You were destined to fail. These are the basic techniques of a battle, but you forgot. You were too anxious to prove yourself. Mr. Reggio opened his mouth. He smiled bitterly and said with admiration,
Mr. Lee, you've taught me a good lesson. I thought I was collected, but as you said, I was too anxious to prove myself, so I was affected by other thoughts. But I don't understand. How did you break my move in one go? How did you do it?
Like I said, there are too many flaws in your wind blade. As long as you truly comprehend all kinds of techniques to a certain level, you'll be able to easily break your technique. James said with confidence. Take your Sun Moon and Star Slash, for example. From the moment you attack, it will be a flaw. You use this move with 3 parts of the wind blade. It's impossible to guard against it. So you should hide 30% wind blade well. Only by not being discovered could you catch them off guard. But what about you? When you were pouring the genuine chi into the sword in your hand, I had already sensed that you had divided the genuine chi into 3 parts, and I'd been paying attention to it from before your strike. Isn't this your biggest flaw?
This.
Basil Reggio widened his eyes, speechless.
That. If I didn't separate the genuine chi, it wouldn't be possible to form such an attack. After all, it would be too late for us to switch places during the battle.
Who said that you want to switch between attacks the moment you attack the enemy? James said. I only want you to hide the waves of your genuine chi. Don't tell me you don't know this.
Hide the energy waves? How could I hide it? Whenever I use the genuine chi, there can't be any energy waves.
Mr. Reggio asked humbly, looking stunned. You're really stupid. James shook his head. He almost felt helpless. There are many ways to hide it. For example, you have a piece of candy in your hand. If you don't want others to find out, what do?
Well, you have to hide it. For example, put it in a place no one can see,
Mr. Reggio said as if it were obvious. Terrence, what do you think? James asked. Terrence hesitated a bit and said,
There are many ways. It's all about hiding it. And if you don't want it to be found, the best would be to eat it.
Mr. Reggio was annoyed when he heard Terrence's answer. How could he have not thought of this himself? But James shook his head and said, Even if you eat it, others will still notice the flavor on your breath. But have you thought about why you are hiding it in the first place?
Mr. Lee, I don't understand. What does candy have to do with this move?
Mr. Reggio asked awkwardly, rubbing his head. Not only does it have something to do with this technique, but it has something to do with you. If you can understand the meaning behind this, you will know how to perfect your technique, James said speechlessly. You have to hide it in plain sight. If you add a layer of medicinal powder on the surface of this candy and disguise it as a pill, what do you think will happen? Have you thought of concealing it?
Disguise it as a pill?
Mr. Reggio was shaken to his core. He exclaimed with excitement,
I understand. I finally understand. Mr. Lee, you mean that before I use this move, I should first use a feint to hide this flaw in front of the enemy, so that they lower the guard and lay the foundation for your next move, a sure kill strike.
You're not stupid after all. James rolled his eyes and heaved a sigh of relief. He said, That's right. There is a limit to human thinking. No matter how fast the reflective arc is, there's always a delay in the body's movement. If you condense 3 wind blades to attack your opponent before using the solar lunar star slash, the enemy would plan out how to deal with your attack, ignoring the fact that you might have a lot of wind blade power in your hand. Although feints are useless, they can always attract the enemy's attention and make them reveal their flaws. Fixing your own flaws is how you level up as an expert. Everyone seemed to be lost in thought and nodded one after another. But when they raised their heads to look at James again, their sense of superiority had been gone and they smiled bitterly. They had lived for a few hundred years and had experienced countless battles, but they discovered that in terms of combat experience, they were not on the same level as James, and they still had a lot to learn from him. It was very awkward. James didn't care about what the others thought. He was just being frank. He continued, "This is only one of the aspects. The second one is the penetrative force of your blade. Power of wind. This is your comprehension of concepts. It's very powerful, but in your hands, it doesn't seem to have any power at all. I just want to ask, what about your power? Where is your power reflected?"
I don't know that.
Mr. Reggio blushed and said awkwardly,
Mr. Lee, what do you think is going on? I have thought about this before, but I couldn't find the problem. Logically speaking, the power of wind shouldn't be limited to this little bit.
"That's why I said that your technique is too weak in your hands. If you can perfectly use these things, even if you can't fight someone above your level, no one of your level will be able to suppress you," James said faintly. "If my guess is correct, this wind blade should be a very good technique. You didn't create it, someone else did. After you obtained it, you discovered that you're good at wind power. Of course, you added your own understanding into it."
Oh, well, I won't lie, you're right.
Mr. Reggio was now in complete admiration of James. Somehow this kid knew everything. "This is where the problem lies," James said. "You have comprehended the wind power, but this blade technique focuses on the flow of the wind. You're using it to simulate the flow without knowing how to master it exactly. How can you unleash such a strong power? You have also discovered this problem, and that's why the technique has been modified. But creating the technique wasn't an easy task. It was passed down from ancient times by the mighty beings who shattered the void. It was written by an expert who specialized in researching techniques. Are you sure that your ability to create and your comprehension of techniques is stronger than theirs? Are you going to alter their techniques without permission?"
I can't,
Mr. Reggio said dispiritedly.
but there's no other way. It's rare to have a technique with such a perfect combination of natural attribute strength. It also fits my natural attributes. I can't give it up. After all, apart from the core of the sect, the other techniques are so ordinary. It's so difficult to find one that suits me and has incredible power. With our strength, we're not able to find a high-grade technique from the sect.
You guys are so limited. James rolled his eyes. I don't have any techniques suitable for you guys right now. In the future, I'll go to the small cloud heaven and rob some of the large sects. And then you can pick any techniques you want, but you can make do with it now. How about this? Write down all the techniques you're cultivating and then add them to your weapons and natural attributes. I'll help you improve them and increase your strength.
Ah, Mr. Lee, do you want to help us improve our technique? Are you serious?
Everyone was dumbfounded. A heavenly human stage expert gulped and said weakly,
Didn't you just say just now that the technique was something that only powerful experts could write?
Don't compare me with you all, James said faintly. Just because you can't do it doesn't mean that I can't. Regarding things like techniques, I've done a lot of research and can help modify them. There's no problem in improving the quality of your techniques. After all, the ones cultivated by experts like Shattering the Void are the ultimate treasures of the large sects. Their insights might not be as good as mine. They say that all the techniques in the world came from the Buddhist sect. As James already had the Celestial Tyrant scripture, his understanding of the art of the Buddhist sect was very deep, and he had absorbed the sarira of an eminent monk from the Buddhist sect, which made his understanding even deeper. At the same time, his formless heart technique was the bridge between the integration of the two abilities of Buddhism and Taoism. The help of the pair of eyes enhanced by the meteorite real chi, any technique was an extremely high-grade type. He could even copy it and use it. Up until now, he had yet to discover any technique that couldn't be duplicated. Now that he had created the Chaos Arts, the Flame Cage, 9-character mantra talisman, print, and many other things, he could see most of the flaws with just a glance. Changing the technique really wasn't a big deal. All right, don't dawdle, hurry up. My time is limited. I will first point out the flaws of your martial skills, and then I will modify the techniques and improve your moves. James urged them. Come on, follow the sequence and use the moves that you're best at. Let me see. Everyone looked at each other in dismay, but they had witnessed his knowledge for themselves. Although they had doubts about James's power, they still began to demonstrate their skills. Flaming saber technique, huh? This is considered a pretty good one, but the most important thing about it is to condense the strength of flame. The purer it is, the stronger its power will be. It's the combination of genuine chi and natural attribute strength that's the key here. You could reduce the ratio of genuine chi by 20%. The flame that you have condensed is stronger. This ratio will increase your attack power by 10%. Oh, this is the guarding sword technique of the Sacred Sword Sect. Are you kidding me? Why did you use such a pointless technique? Where is the Myriad Convergence Sword? Which one is the first? You haven't reached that level yet, so it's a waste to use this technique. You should go and study the sword intent first. Otherwise, you'll never be able to use the essence of this move. And you, oh my god, you're going too far. You're cultivating the earth strength? It's obviously too heavy for you. You're using the most elegant narrow sword. What's the point? Hurry up, change your weapon. As James continued to speak, the 100 heavenly human stages felt quite ashamed. After listening to James's corrections, they finally realized just how ignorant they were. He really knew everything. While giving guidance to the experts, James didn't stay idle. He took advantage of this time to look at these people's techniques and assess their potential. The techniques that a person cultivated could determine the level they could reach. Even if one's talent was strong enough, if they cultivated trash techniques, the further they advanced, the more difficult it would be. After all, the level of the technique was not high enough. The circulation of the genuine chi through the technique would be sluggish, and there would be too many limitations. With the level of these people's techniques, it was already the highest that could support them to reach the 3rd layer of the heavenly human stage. If they wanted to break through to the 4th layer, even with the help of the unmatched pill, it would be useless without the help of a high-grade technique. Looking at James calmly painting and drawing, everyone felt respect for him. They had finally witnessed James's ability. He was powerful beyond their imagination. They began to believe that James might really be able to improve their techniques to a higher level. Was it even impossible to modify their techniques? Modifying the technique takes a lot of effort. James rubbed his head and felt a headache coming on. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Changes normally take a long time. If he could complete the technique in a few hours, they would be scared to death.
Mr. Lee, well, you did say that it was easy to modify this thing. After all, it is the comprehension of many major cultivation techniques, and no matter how powerful a person is, they still need to comprehend too many techniques in order to create one that can be modified, Mr. Reggio consoled. James nodded and said with a smile, "You're right. I'm being impatient. After all, the technique fusion in my body is only at the initial stage. Forget it. I won't force you. As for the rest, I'll give it to you guys at night. For the time being, I've changed the technique of over 30 people. You guys can take them back and take a look. Although they aren't the best techniques, they are much stronger than the ones you used before. At the very least, this technique can support your cultivation to the 7th layer of the heavenly human stage, and it won't drag you down." 7th? Everyone almost choked with shock. In just a few hours, he had finished modifying more than 30 techniques. He told them that he didn't change much. Could he still want to finish modifying all 100 techniques in one go? Of course, that was what James thought.
Everyone was skeptical, and Terrence's tanned face was flushed red. He picked up the technique that James helped him modify and looked at it curiously.
There are a lot of changes here. At least 10% is different,
Terrence exclaimed. He looked at the changes and read out loud.
2 hands hold the meridian seal and 4 doors tightly guard the center. 10,000 thoughts merged into one entering the void, feeling that the true meaning had been born. Exhale 3 inches into the air, closing the throat tightly like a bottle, allowing the chi to sweep through the internal organs and open the pores of the human body and the heavenly passage. This modified formula actually became a poem. It's more advanced, and it's even more organized and clear. It divided the formula for refining the spirit and the formula for cultivating the chi.
Everyone's mouths were wide open. Although this had nothing to do with them, just listening to it made them feel unleveled. These few short sentences were hard for them to comprehend completely in a short period of time, and James did this so quickly and casually. The techniques you had previously used were very ordinary. The content was a little messy. James looked at Terrence and explained, "You can see that the person who wrote this technique had never cultivated it before, so many things are based on theory. It lacks the reality experience. The lower 2 apertures of the tongue seal off the vital energy in the gallbladder and force it to fuse with the mind, and the mind becomes angry. The heart is nurtured with true fire. Theoretically, there's no problem with this, but there is a prerequisite for everything. That is, your spiritual power is strong enough. But you're only the first layer of the heavenly human stage now. You've just started cultivating your soul, so how strong can you be? I won't hand over my chi essence, and I won't be able to condense my light. It's too difficult."
So that's how it is. No wonder the more I cultivate, the more I'm stuck. This is a problem with my technique.
Terrence came to a sudden realization, and his entire being suddenly became enlightened. He finally understood the problem that he couldn't figure out all this time. He looked at James again, this time with admiration. He was now sure that this man definitely had great talent. He had modified the technique in a short period of time and pointed out its most fundamental problem. Plus, he improved it by more than 1 level. Just how powerful was this person? Even a true expert who could shatter the void wouldn't be able to do this. And what was that technique that could create the shattering void? It required over 1,000 years of constantly studying and analyzing it and modifying it in order to create an embryonic form. Although James wasn't the one who created it, no one would be able to do this. "That's right," James smiled, nodding. "That's why I said the pill is just a supplement. Is it possible to advance? It depends on each and every one of you. Your martial skills and your comprehension levels are not up to standard. With the technique that I modified for all of you, all you need to do is to master it. If you try hard enough, you might be able to break through to the second layer of the heavenly human stage in no time. It might even be possible for you to break through on the same day. I'll lend you all a helping hand. Those who have obtained my new technique, the top 5 who have broken through to the second layer of the heavenly human stage, each person gets a heaven understanding pill. And from 6th to 10th place, each person gets a creation pill. Whoever breaks through first gets the prize. Do you understand?" Everybody in the room stared dumbfounded. This was a big deal. 10 heaven understanding pills and 10 creation pills. Each of them was an earth pill grade item and was extremely beneficial. No one dared to waste any more time. They all bid their farewells and ran back to cultivate. After all, there were too many of them and only a few pills. "Mr. Reggio, Terrence, why are you two in such a hurry?" "Something I have to talk to you about," James said to them.
Well, the heaven understanding pill, after all, it's a high-grade pill. I'd love to have it,
Terrence said in an embarrassed tone. James shook his head helplessly. "This heaven understanding pill doesn't have the compounding effect. A normal person can only take 1. The second pill will have no effect. What's there to be excited about?" The two of you have already consumed the Heaven Understanding pills, and I've already improved your technique. As the leaders of these people, can you look at your own strength? I'll limit you to reaching the third layer of Heavenly Human Stage before these people reach the second layer of Heavenly Human Stage. Both of them felt ashamed. If those people had reached the second layer with their strength, they wouldn't be able to convince the masses that they were able to manage them.
But Mr. Lee, advancing isn't that easy. I've just gotten to the second layer of the Heavenly Human Stage. How could I go to the third layer so quickly?
Mr. Reggio said with a bitter smile. What's so difficult about that? Going from the second layer to the third layer is within the range of a low-grade Heavenly Human Stage. Your techniques are improved by me, and they're stronger than the others. And I will pass on a technique to you. You just need to focus on cultivating it. I don't want the person I choose to be questioned, James said lightly. The thing I gave you is much stronger than yours. It's a top-level technique. And this will be your trump card from now on.
Mr. Lee, this skill of mine is a top-tier skill of the Southern Kingdom, sword drawing arts,
Mr. Reggio exclaimed. And I think this thing suits you very well, James said slowly. You're good at knife skills and understanding wind power. When you fought with one of the Heavenly Human Stage experts, I noticed that your knife skills had a kind of sharpness to them. The tip of the blade is already extremely powerful. It matches perfectly with the sword drawing arts, especially the wind power that you've comprehended. The moment you draw the blade, it could make the genuine chi and wind blade instantly burst out. It's impossible to guard against it as the power will reach an extreme. So, the direction you're going to go in the future is the stream. When your wind power can be cultivated to the maximum level, the opponent's defense will be as weak as paper.
Understood.
Mr. Reggio was excited. This kind of advancement wasn't something he could stumble upon. The sword drawing arts was very useful and very suitable for him. Terrence is good at using the metal string, and he also uses a long spear. What I'm giving you is my family's spear technique. But it's not an ordinary spear technique. It's the most complete version that was passed down from ancient times. It's extremely powerful. Go and learn it yourself. James took out a stack of paper and said, All right, next, I have to talk about something serious. These are 2 formations. I've already written them down in detail. The 2 of you should study them as soon as you can, and then hand them over to the rest. You must learn them within these few days. This is very important.
Yes.
The 2 of them received the items and nodded solemnly. After saying a few words, they left. When they were gone, Alaric Lee looked at James and said,
You always take things from my head and give them away. How annoying.
Oh, you're just a little treasure chest, James grinned. I realize that you know a lot. You have the pill refining recipe, and you also have the high-level techniques. When are you going to teach me all the high-level techniques you know? It just so happens that I also lack in that department.
Nonsense. Do you really need any more of them?
The Alaric Lee rolled its eyes and said,
What you control is the highest grade formless heart technique. It can support you to become the strongest person in the world. Plus, your martial arts skills are also the top techniques of the Buddhist sect and the Tao sect. What else could you possibly need?
All right. As the saying goes, one should not bite off more than one can chew. I'll just study all the techniques of the Buddhist sect and the Tao sect carefully. I'm still hoping to fuse them together and create my own martial arts path. James smacked his lips. Although the 72 ultimate moves of the Buddhist sect are very powerful individually, it has not met my requirements. Also, compared to the balance blade and the sword scripture of the indestructible tyrannical body that I've created, the difference is too great.
Well, the balanced blade and sword scripture is actually the ultimate skill created by the first generation human emperor. It was passed down from generation to generation. How can an ordinary skill be a match for it?
The Alaric Lee said.
As for the indestructible tyrannical body, hell, it is the earth idol of the Buddhist sect, the 3 clarities idol of the Tao gate, and the lotus giant spirit armor on your body.
Adding these three things together will allow your defense and attack power to reach an extreme level, and at the same time, it would also reduce the consumption of genuine chi compared to using the idol. This is also the benefit of fusing the two techniques of the Buddha Tao. You're almost past the initial stage.
Huh. Not bad. Not bad. I just need to work harder in the future. I'll try to fuse all these things together. With different comprehensions, you can create your own techniques, James said in high spirits. Then the technique I create will be famous for hundreds of years. I'll be the first generation ancestor.
Stop dreaming, my 9th generation human emperor, the Alarically laughed. Think about surviving the crisis first. You have to know that the experts you're facing are not these people in front of you. If you survive, with your inventions and creations, it's still possible for it to last forever.
James said, I'm too lazy to argue with you. I'll go refine some talisman and prints first to refine a pill with patterns. I've used up my pills. I have to refine some more. Meanwhile, in the manor, Ashley was still wearing her fiery red clothes. She smiled and said, Your Highness, everything that needs to be prepared is getting done. Now that the experts of the 3 domains have already started their war in America, I'm afraid a great war is about to start. No one knows what's going on in the United States, but they've destroyed the armies of Russia and Spain in the past few days. Less than 1 out of 10 people have escaped. This is a fatal blow to both countries. Has it finally begun? A faint smile hung on the corner of Joyce's mouth as she said, The day we've been waiting for is finally here, but this is only the beginning. The people from the few regions, the strongest one is only at the 3rd layer of heavenly human stage, and there are only 1,000 of them. There's still a long way to go before they can fight properly. We can only hope that James can hold on for a while, and that he doesn't die. Otherwise, I will have to wait another 1,000 years, and I really don't want to wait any longer. Your Highness, you think too highly of that guy. Other than his glib tongue and some smarts, he's extremely weak. With so many people looking for him, even if all of them were low-grade heavenly human stage, he wouldn't be able to stop them. And this fool is deliberately exposing his identity. He's playing with fire. Ashley looked very worried. She gritted her teeth and said, If it weren't for the great plan, I would beat him up. When she thought about how James had grabbed her, Ashley felt like she was going to explode from anger. The heavenly human stage aura on her body kept surging, and her fury with him seemed to have solidified. Yes, in a short period of time, her strength had already recovered to the heavenly human stage. Oh, what happened? How did you make Ashley this angry? Joyce said with a sarcastic smile. Ashley's face immediately turned red. She stomped her foot but didn't say anything.
James is very strong. He's not easy to kill,
Alex said solemnly.
Plus, I can feel a suppressive aura on his body. It feels familiar, but it also feels a little scary, and I don't know where this fear comes from.
Are you kidding me? Ashley stared at him.
You're the biological son of the strongest venerable in the White Tiger clan. Who could intimidate you? What makes you scared?
Alex rolled his eyes and said gloomily,
Don't compare me to him. That guy's a monster. That talent of his is simply not human. His father is the strongest man in our world. He killed everyone who was his match. No one else could fight against him anymore. As for his mother, she's also an unmatched expert. James and his friends are quite strange. They never let their guard down. Unless it's absolutely necessary, I don't want to fight him.
Alex is right, Joyce said. James is the heir of the human sovereign. He also has unmatched wisdom, so anything's possible. She had to admit that the human sovereign expert was indeed an unmatched genius. It was hard to imagine that he could reach a supreme level just by relying on himself. And the inheritance that he left behind must not be underestimated.
Forget it. I'm just complaining. I'm still counting on him to persist for a while longer.
Ashley smiled and said,
But sir, what do we need to do now? Should we just watch him from here? It might be a good thing to save my energy, and I want to have some free time. I'm afraid not. Even if the two of you recover to your peak strength, you still won't be able to break through the void. As long as you can't leave this place, you will be suppressed by the world. If those experts from the small cloud heaven joined in, I'm afraid that we'll have to be reluctant to get involved in this battle. It might be a great danger to us.
Joyce's beautiful eyes darkened as she said,
I've always said that our goal is not to fight, and there is no need for us to be caught up in it. After all, we don't belong here. So we need to settle our matters before the small cloud heaven is fully opened and those absolute experts arrive. From now on, the problems here will have nothing to do with us. We don't have much time left, but there are too few experts participating in this battle. We need to recruit more people as soon as possible. That's true. Right now, the formation that we've set up for so many years can function, but it requires too much blood energy. There are only so many people in this world. The blood energy of ordinary people is insignificant that it has no effect at all. Only a powerful martial cultivator could do it. If the small cloud heaven hasn't opened, we won't be able to get our hands on anyone,
Ashley said with a frown on her face. Corner of Joyce's mouth slightly raised as she said,
That's why we need to do something. I've been searching for the weakest part of the small cloud heaven for the sake of today. They needed to build a new passageway through that part. This way, all those below the 7th layer of heavenly human stage will be able to come here. But it's still not enough for us to build the passageway. We need to let the people of the small cloud heaven help us. Contact Caleb. Let him spread the news on the other side. There will be people who will cooperate with us. They're not fools. How could they not be suspicious of this? Don't tell me that they think that this is a conspiracy,
Alex asked in a deep voice.
Joyce smiled and said, The people of small cloud heaven have been anxious to seize the inheritance for a long time. Even if they knew it was a conspiracy, they would willingly fall for it. It's human nature. Let James rest for a while. After all, it will take some time to complete this task. I want to see how he is going to deal with these people. He still has something that belongs to me. If he dies, that would be terrible. Ashley, keep an eye on James. If his life is in danger, save him. He can't die. Okay, I got it. I'll take care of it. Even if he wants to die, I won't let him, Ashley said, smiling.
A few days passed. The atmosphere in the sky above America was getting more and more tense. Dark clouds covered the sky, making it hard for people to breathe. Of course, this wasn't just the weather. It was the war. The leaders of Spain, Russia, and other countries had arrived. Over 1,000 heavenly human stage experts were marching towards the ocean region in America. Their endless aura was extremely powerful, and no ocean creature dared to approach within a 10-mile radius. Meanwhile, in the Imperial Forest Court, 100 heavenly human stage experts stood in front of James in a neat formation. They held their heads high and looked at James with admiration and respect that came from the bottom of their hearts. All of them had advanced to the 2nd layer of the heavenly human stage without exception. Mr. Reggio and Terrence, who were leading the group, had already reached the 3rd layer. They looked mighty, yet not aggressive. They were much stronger compared to before.
Mr. Lee, none of us failed to live up to your expectations. All of us have advanced to the next realm,
Mr. Reggio said respectfully.
Not bad.
James nodded with satisfaction.
Take the pill to advance. There are a lot of pills that have yet to be used. It's not easy to advance just by relying on the modified techniques. Mr. Lee, you're being too serious. The techniques that you have modified for us, regardless of whether it's the speed of circulation or absorption of the genuine chi, are much higher than they were. They're more suitable for us.
A man at the heavenly human stage said respectfully.
Just those techniques alone are enough to let us comprehend a lot of things. Of course, there is the pressure of competition. For the heaven understanding pills, everyone's cultivating with all their might.
You're quite honest. James smiled and waved his hand. He said with pride, since everyone has broken through to the second layer of the heavenly human stage, I'm very happy today. Anyone who hasn't yet gotten the heaven understanding pill before will receive one. Those who have will receive 2 pills with patterns each. This is the perfect time to consolidate your strength.
1 each?
Everyone present instantly erupted with excitement.
James Lee is so generous. He's a great role model for our generation.
Keep a low profile, James lightly coughed. He said, it's only 88 heaven understanding pills. Don't make a big fuss about it. After saying that, James stretched out his hand, and 88 pills wrapped in genuine chi floated in the air and flew towards those people. Watching these pills blot out the sky, everyone couldn't help but gulp in anticipation. 88 heaven understanding pills, plus the other 12 he'd given them before. That was a total of 100 extremely rare pills. They didn't dare to imagine where James had gotten them from. Even if a heavenly pillmaster refined non-stop, it would take several months or even a year. Most importantly, the pills that James took out hadn't been placed in special porcelain bottles. Did he just keep them all piled up together? This was too wasteful. After all, this heaven understanding pill was a high-grade pill that was close to the peak of the earth pill. The success rate of great achievement level earth pill master refining this pill was very low. You can take this pill with patterns if you obtain the heaven understanding pill, James said casually.
Mr. Lee, you've refined the pill with patterns. Didn't you say that they could only be refined with a lot of luck?
Everyone was dumbfounded. Were they dreaming? With so many pills with patterns at once? Or did he make them perfectly well without relying on luck? There's nothing in this world that relies on luck. If one's unable to refine a pill with patterns, it can only mean they haven't figured out the correct method yet, James said faintly. So in the future, there's no need to be shocked when you see this kind of pill. It's not a big deal. I didn't have time to make them earlier. In the future, I'll make more of them. They require a lot of effort to hold on to. I don't have a place to store them. When James said that, everyone almost choked to death. Only he could say these words. At that moment, President Booth rushed in with a solemn expression. He said in a deep voice,
James, I have bad news. Thousands of heavenly human stage experts from the 3 kingdoms have already rushed towards America. What do you think we should do?
Why would that be a big deal? James rolled his eyes. He said, aren't you prepared for this? We knew they would come here. As the leader of the country, why are you so flustered?
It's easy for you to say.
President Booth's face darkened, and he said,
You'll know when you go to the Eastern Sea and take a look at the scene. Even if you're mentally prepared, it's still shocking. Have you ever seen thousands of experts coming together? I don't believe that you can remain calm and unbothered in the face of such danger.
1,000? I really hadn't seen this before, but I have seen 100 heavenly human stage experts, and I didn't feel anything either. James grinned and said, Don't worry, they're here for me, so you don't have to worry about them. I'll take care of it. Besides, they won't be able to do anything. So what if there are 1,000 experts? They don't have discipline, and they don't know how to fight in a team. There's no need to worry. Plus, they have the most obvious flaw. That is, they're too confident.
Oh, what do you mean by that?
President Booth asked curiously, as if he grasped onto something. 1,000 heavenly human stage experts. They spread out and attack America from all directions. We won't be able to defend against them. In a few days' time, America would fall completely. If we don't use nuclear weapons, our empire will be destroyed. James sneered and explained, but they didn't split up. Instead, they're all coming together. This is their biggest mistake. Although they are powerful and intimidating when they're together, there's not much damage they can do. This way, it'd be impossible for them to break through our borders. So, this indirectly proves that the country isn't their goal after all. They're here for me. So you don't have to worry about American civilians being harmed.
Well, that makes a lot of sense.
President Booth unconsciously let out a sigh of relief and said,
But what about the flaws that you mentioned? They don't need to have any discipline or planning. 1,000 heavenly human stage experts, we can't beat them anyway.
Well, that's not necessarily true, is it? James raised an eyebrow and chuckled. Since they are in a group, they're putting on an act. What do you think, Mr. President? When they're together, we can throw an atomic bomb at their center. Won't that solve the problem?
Oh.
Even President Booth couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. She stared at James.
You really think you can throw an atomic bomb at all those heavenly human stage experts? Do you know how terrifying this is? If we do that, not only will they die, but even the ocean and coastline of our country will be destroyed. Launching the atomic bomb goes against the interest of mankind. It's too cruel.
Why do you even care? Our opponents aren't ordinary people. They're experts of the small cloud heaven. Don't forget that. James rolled his eyes. They're not innocent civilians, nor are they kind-hearted people. All of them are executioners. Their hands are stained with blood. You can imagine how many civilians will be slaughtered if they really attack America.
Even if we were to fire, we wouldn't be able to transport the nuclear bombs in time. Besides, there are many ordinary people living on the coastline, so we can't do this.
President Booth frowned. James smiled and said, It's all right. They can consider themselves lucky. We won't attack them this time. We'll talk about it another time. Fortunately, I'm well prepared as I haven't been idle these past few days. I've been training my men. My 100 experts will go and fight the 1,000 heavenly human stage experts. At this point, James was filled with pride. The thought of 100 heavenly human stage experts challenging 1,000 people made his blood boil.
What nonsense are you talking about? Are you crazy? You want to send 100 people to fight 1,000? Do you think your small army is strong enough to crush the 1,000 people?
President Booth was furious. He said worriedly,
You should know that the King of the East is being targeted by the kings from the other 3 parts of the world. Not only are the people from the East few, but they're also very weak. They don't even have a 2nd or 3rd heavenly layer expert. As for the other 3 kingdoms, I'm afraid that there are more than 100 2nd and 3rd layer experts in each. What can you use to fight them? Even if your people are all extremely talented, they'll never win.
Who said so? James turned to his army and said calmly, Come and show our president what a 2nd layer of heavenly human stage expert is capable of.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Reggio and the others shouted in unison. The auras on their bodies of 100 heavenly human stage experts suddenly burst forth. Like a monstrous wave, it instantly swept across the entire court.
What? These are all 2nd and even 3rd layer experts? Weren't they all just 1st layer days ago? How did they become so strong all of a sudden?
President Booth's face turned pale when he felt the tremendous aura, and he was in shock. He had witnessed them with his own eyes and knew what kind of strength these people had possessed. 1st layer of heavenly human stage, there was no mistaking it. But in just a few days' time, they had reached the 2nd layer, and some of them, even the 3rd layer. This completely changed his worldview. Even a genius wouldn't advance so quickly. What he was sure of was that James was the one who increased their strength. There was no mistake. Besides him, who else could have done that? Seeing the president's shocked face, The 100 people looked at James with pride and respect. Mr. Reggio said humbly,
It's all thanks to Mr. Lee. We're nothing compared to him. All this is the result of his hard work.
James looked at the shocked President Booth and said with a smile, There are a few reasons why they couldn't advance further. They were only at the first layer of the heavenly human stage, and their technique wasn't good. Their talent was too poor, and they didn't have the support of the pill. In terms of hard work, though, they're as good as anyone, and I only made up for 3 of the flaws. They worked hard. After all, they have been in the first layer of heavenly human stage for so many years. With the help of these pills, they wouldn't have a problem breaking through to the 3rd layer of heavenly human stage in such a short while. But it would be difficult to cross to the 4th heaven. It would take time to comprehend, and they'd have to be lucky.
I heard that you gave a bunch of heaven understanding pills as a reward. Only you would be able to take out such a huge amount of pills,
President Booth said sincerely. James smiled and said, I have prepared a secret weapon. 100 of my experts are in fact capable of fighting 1,000 heavenly human stage experts. And speak of the devil, they're already here. James's phone vibrated. He rushed out.
Boss, look. I have reached the heavenly human stage and you're still a peak great grandmaster stage expert. I can finally beat you.
When he saw James, Chris grinned, extremely happy. I've refined so many special pills for you and your talent is so strong. If you don't break through, you'll be blinded by the pills I gave you, James said, curling his lips.
Ugh.
Chris blushed and smiled awkwardly as he retorted,
Fair enough. You're an alchemist. Don't you know how to refine some heaven pills for yourself? If you still haven't broken through, it means you can't.
James felt disheartened. He wanted to reach the next level, but the energy required was too great. Besides, due to his physique, ordinary pills were useless to him. If he used one to increase his strength, he would lose his talent.
All right, boss, stop talking nonsense. We've heard that thousands of heavenly human stage experts are coming to kill you. This has us really excited, especially Mr. Morris. He was so excited that he couldn't sleep all night,
Scott said with a smile. Mr. Morris scoffed, showing displeasure.
You're talking nonsense. But you guys are really talented. With the help of James's pill, advancing is as easy as playing a game. Either you're at the 3rd step heaven or you've already advanced to the heavenly human stage, and what about me? I'm still in the early period of the great grandmaster stage. How could I not feel disappointed? But just you wait. Wait for me to absorb all those heavenly human stages. I know I'll surpass all of you. You better give up on that idea, Carlton Falconer said, flicking his elegant hair. He chuckled. Your talent is to absorb others. Before you consolidated your strength, you couldn't even defeat a super. At that time, even if you absorbed a heavenly human stage, you'd still be at your weakest level. Carlton, you bastard, you're bullying me again. All right. I didn't ask you guys to come here to fight, James said helplessly. But looking at your strength, I feel relieved. You guys haven't been slacking off these days. Scott, Carlton, Chris, all of you have reached the heavenly human stage. And apart from Mr. Morris, the rest are all at the 3rd step heaven experts. When he saw this, Samson, who was not far away, was secretly shocked. Others might not have known, but he knew one thing. If James really was the chosen one, those who followed him would follow him anyway. With his luck, his strength would increase rapidly. But one had to admit that apart from Mr. Morris and Terry, who was only good at gathering information, James and his people's innate talent wasn't just for show. Each and every one of them was terrifying. A man in his 20s who was in the heavenly realm was extremely progressed in the small cloud heaven. But Charles West shook his head at that moment. He was very dissatisfied with his own strength. That extraordinary memory and comprehension allowed me to advance very quickly.
I was already at peak Great Grandmaster stage before this. Reaching the third step heaven is only a step away. Plus, the 8 of us used the formation to understand the third step heaven. Reaching the third step is a piece of cake, but it's hard for us to break through to the heavenly human stage. This is no big deal. James took out a pearl, threw it to Charles. He smiled and said, breaking through to the heavenly human stage is not easy, you say? Well, after using this thing, you will naturally reach the heavenly human stage, and your comprehension of the art of the Buddhist sect will also improve. Are you serious? Charles's eyes lit up as he felt surging energy in his bead. He was filled with excitement. I can feel that this aura in this thing is very similar to the one I practiced in the Buddhist sect. Feels really nice. If I take this pill, I might really be able to advance. All right, well, there's no time for you to take it now. Let's get to the battlefield. The war won't wait. James turned to look at the 100 experts behind him with a serious expression. Then, he shouted in a deep voice, Brothers, this will be your first battle under my command. Although there are over 1,000 of your opponents, they are all heavenly human stage experts. You're no longer the same as you were. Are you confident in your strength? Yes. 100 experts shouted out loudly. Their eyes were burning, and their bodies were brimming with fighting spirit. They were all mighty experts, and they were all heavenly human stage experts. Although they were nothing in Cloud Heaven and had once given up on themselves, things were different now. After joining James, they had reached the next level in a short period of time, allowing them to regain their confidence. They believed that their future would be great. Even if there were thousands of heavenly human stages, they still had the courage to try. Your collective aura is not bad. Okay, let's go. James nodded in satisfaction, and the group of people started running towards the east. The Eastern Sea region was the only border between America and Russia. If those traveling from Russia didn't take a plane, they would have to pass through the Eastern Sea region if they wanted to come here. If they looked at the coastline from afar, they'd see 3 large warships parked together. They were arranged in an orderly manner, completely blocking the surface of the sea as if it was land. On the warships, 1,000 heavenly human stage experts stood proudly. Different outfits, different skin tones showed off their diversity. Mr. Petrenko, is this really a good idea? A black man in a light blue vest showed his strong muscles. He crossed his arms over his chest and said unhappily, A small group of men expect to fight experts of the 3 territories. If we don't wait, what should we do? Do you want us to just attack America? Andrew, are the people of the North this stupid? Petrenko sneered. Mr. Petrenko, do you still want to fight? Andrew bared his teeth and said coldly, It's just a country. Do you think that this is small cloud heaven? With 1,000 of heavenly human stage experts attacking them, no matter how strong the country is, it will be crushed in an instant. That's not true, a fat man who was fanning himself said with a smile. Today is different from the past. Andrew, you probably haven't been paying attention to the situation in this world. Although their combat strength is not on the same level as Small Cloud Heaven, in terms of technique, they are able to crush the 2 streets of the Small Cloud Heaven. There is something called an atomic bomb here. Even a 9th layer of heavenly human stage will be killed by it if we push them too hard. If they think perishing together with us would be worth it, they'll use it. After all, our lives are much more valuable than theirs. Besides, we're only here to find that treasure. There's no need to risk our lives to deal with that kid called James Lee, right? Andrew's heart felt heavy. He let out a cold scoff. That might be true. Fatty, what if the brat doesn't come? Wouldn't we have to fight America and look for that kid at the same time? Wouldn't it be even more difficult? Andrew, I have a name. My name's Pold. Don't call me Fatty. I'm a big man, that's all. Do you understand? The man's face was completely red as he spoke, all flustered and exasperated. All right, Fatty. Enough. What are you arguing about at a time like this? Trenko said lightly. We need to cooperate, the three of us. Don't fight amongst yourselves. After all, our opponent isn't just James Lee, but America in general. There are also people from the east of Small Cloud Heaven. Although they aren't that strong, we can't underestimate them. We have to put all of our energy into guarding against them. Otherwise, if they take advantage of us, we won't be able to obtain anything. The three kings have spent a lot of effort to suppress the king of the east, and this is the only chance they have. It's impossible for us to have the absolute upper hand in the future. It was rare that the two of them didn't argue, but they both nodded in agreement. Hold said in a deep voice, Let's not talk about the other things. Let's work together. If that James guy is not caught, everything will be a waste, and as far as I know, that brat isn't someone to be trifled with. He deliberately exposed his identity. Although he is likely trying to protect his father and attract our attention, he could also have some special means to deal with the impending crisis, so we have to be prepared. Let's wait until we really catch that kid and beat him half to death before we use our own methods to fight him. What do you think? Of course I agree, Petrenko said with a faint smile. Whoever seizes him will have to rely on themselves. This is relatively fair. If you fail, you can't blame anyone else. As they spoke, the three of them looked towards a place not too far away from the shore, and their eyes suddenly lit up. On the shore, a young man walked towards President Booth, with a dozen people behind him, and they looked at each other from afar. Mr. President, I wonder what you're thinking, Petrenko said, looking at President Booth with pride. He said in a flat tone, You should know that there are 1,000 heavenly human stage experts on our side. It won't be difficult for them to eliminate your army, but we haven't done that. We're showing you respect by not killing anyone here. If you hand over that kid James Lee to us, we will leave immediately and never attack you. Young man, who do you think you are to lecture me? President Booth's eyes slightly narrowed and he said with a smile, A few days ago, I almost killed all of the Russian and Spanish armies. So many people have died. But now you don't have the slightest intention to kill us. Oh, you're very kind. As the American president, I'm in charge of the entire country, and James Lee is also an American citizen. I won't hand him over to you. How shameless would I be? How about you leave, and I'll spare you from the death penalty for trespassing into our waters. You have been very bold, Mr. President. I see there's no room for negotiation. Petrenko's face suddenly turned cold. I didn't want to talk to you in the first place. You could do whatever you want with the people of other countries, but you can't touch my people. Even if you are at the 9th layer of Heavenly Human Stage or break the void. If you push me too hard, I'll let them die with me, President Booth said arrogantly. You have guts. As soon as these words left his mouth, Petrenko stared at President Booth with a murderous look in his eyes. Mr. Petrenko, sir, you don't need to listen to this old man's nonsense. I don't believe that he would dare to launch an atomic bomb. President Booth's eyes were filled with hatred as he coldly said, You're in America. If you mess around, you'll find out what we're capable of. My people are scattered all around here. The radius of the explosion of the atomic bomb is extremely wide. For example, the range of the medium-sized nuclear bomb's explosion is several thousand miles. But if it's a large bomb, the range of the explosion can reach up to 100 miles. Through the nuclear fission, the huge amount of radiation will destroy everything. No one in this area will survive. And, Mr. Petrenko, the kid beside me is the James Lee you're looking for. How many soldiers did Russia and Spain send to the American border? In the end, he really didn't expect that President Booth would be so bold as to kill all of their men. This made him so angry that his insides were burning. The people of Small Cloud Heaven didn't care about the lives of the Russian soldiers, but he did. After all, he was the Russian president. At this moment, he really wanted to shred President Booth and the others to pieces. Seeing Petrenko and the others looking at him, James shrugged his shoulders. He said with a calm smile, "I didn't want to bomb you guys, so you don't have to worry. Using that bomb on you is a waste of resources anyway. We're saving the nuclear bombs for those above the 9th layer of Heavenly Human Stage, so you're far from qualified. Didn't you people come to kill me? Then come closer. What are you waiting for? Do more than 1,000 Heavenly Human Stage experts not have the courage to attack me? And are they waiting for me to make the first move?"
Shameless show-off. Who do you think you are?
Andrew couldn't help but speak up. He sneered and said,
Mr. Petrenko, I don't have your patience. This kid is here now. If you don't attack him, I will go first. The more I look at this guy's annoying face, the more my hand is itching. This kid, who knows nothing about life, dares to be more arrogant than me. He deserves to be killed. Everyone in the Northern Kingdom, listen up. Attack this guy together, but don't let him die. Save him some breath. Go.
Andrew gave the order. A couple of hundred Heavenly Human Stage experts jumped out of the warship and rushed towards James. President Booth's face turned serious as he felt the tremendous aura. No matter how good his mental strength was, when he saw all the experts that looked like a locust crossing the border, his heart skipped a beat.
Samson, how are you going to attack?
President Booth asked the man standing behind him.
I do want to attack, sir, but Mr. Lee hasn't given the order.
Samson shrugged helplessly and said awkwardly,
Besides, I've used up too much genuine chi to save my son. I need the pills to help catalyze it. I really can't do it now.
He had been eager to save his son. How could he be thinking of what would happen next? With his cultivation base, if he wasn't in the Small Cloud Heaven, his genuine chi would be extremely difficult to recover. When he heard that, the corner of President Booth's mouth twitched. Originally, Samson was their biggest trump card. After all, this man was an unmatched 9th layer of Heavenly Human Stage expert, and no one on this side could match him. But he was too weak to attack. This had destroyed all of his hopes. With James and his people, including the 100 Heavenly Human Stage experts, how could they fight against 1,000 enemies? Wasn't this nonsense? Sir, this is our battle. You should retreat to safety. There are so many people fighting here. I can't spare any energy to protect you, James said. His eyes showed determination. He would use a high-intensity battle to make a breakthrough. Only the constant pressure was his motivation. President Booth didn't like what he had heard. He took a firm step forward and scoffed.
Kid.
What? James asked, frowning.
Kid, I'm a 2nd layer of Heavenly Human Stage now, and I have 6 Heavenly Human Stage experts by my side. I don't need your protection. Besides, as an American president, I'm not that cowardly. Why would I shrink back at a time like this? They offended my country and they will still be punished.
That's right. This is a true American president. James grinned. And then he shouted in a deep voice.
Listen up. Kill all the idiots with all your strength. For every 2nd or 1st grade expert killed, I'll reward you with 3 pills, and you could choose anyone you want. For killing a 3rd layer of Heavenly Human Stage expert, 1 mid-Earth core pill of your choosing. All those who kill the most people will be rewarded with an early heaven pill. Do you understand?
100 Heavenly Human Stage experts stood out with readiness. They came to James's side one after another, and the genuine chi on their bodies were surging to the extreme. When they heard the word heaven pill, their eyes lit up with excitement. Heaven pill. James had promised them a heaven pill, and this made them wild with joy. It was the most extravagant reward for anyone. This was enough motivation to give up their lives and fight to the death. With a roar, over 100 people unleashed their heavenly human stage auras, rushing towards the group of opponents. Petrenko's pupils shrunk from shock.
100 experts above the second layer of heavenly human stage. How is this possible? Where did they come from in this barren land? I can't believe it,
he shouted in shock. His brain had simply short-circuited. Pold's eyes were about to pop out. He couldn't help but exclaim,
"Wow, this James Lee is amazing. He has 100 heavenly human stage experts under his command, and he's not even a first layer. Where did these people come from?" "No matter where they came from, 100 heavenly human stage experts is nothing to be afraid of."
Petrenko took a deep breath and calmed himself down. He said coldly,
"We have more than 1,000 experts, and there's no need to be afraid. Pold, let's not waste any more time. Prepare to attack. All these heavenly human stage experts will still die when they face our army."
After Petrenko finished speaking, the experts behind him started moving, and countless genuine chi was intertwined with each other in the air. It was creating a beautiful and dazzling scene.
"Demon subduing ring formation."
Mr. Reggio's eyes focused. He waved his hand, and the hearts of the nearly 100 experts trembled. They quickly moved their bodies. Each of them formed a demon-subduing ring, and even stronger auras rose from their bodies. There was a series of muffled sounds, and countless attacks were unleashed from the coastline. The explosions had no end. It could be seen with the naked eye that every 3 men on James's side were able to hold back more than 10 heavenly human stage experts, and even they couldn't withstand the attack of those 3 men.
"How is this possible? There are only second layer of heavenly human stage experts. How could they be so strong? There are so many of us here, but we didn't get any advantage at all."
An expert from the 3 kingdoms cried out in shock and disbelief when he saw that the dozens of experts had no idea how to deal with a few opponents.
"No. There's something strange about this formation. It seems to be the devil suppressing ring of those people from the Buddhist sect. The power of this formation has given them a boost. We must break this formation or else we won't get them." "You can see it, but how can you break it? You think too highly of yourself," one of James's men said proudly. "This is the formation that Mr. Lee taught us. As long as the 3 of us work together, there's nothing that you can do. Even a 3rd layer of heavenly human stage might not be able to defeat the 3 of us quickly. Who do you think you are?" "Well, there are more of us here. 6 or 7 of us are the second layer of heavenly human stage. No matter how many of you there are, you won't defeat us." At the same time, the situation was exactly the same across the battlefield. Dozens of experts had surrounded formations of 3, but were unable to break through. The attacking side didn't know what to think. Petrenko and the others were dumbfounded. There were so many experts on their side, and they had absolute advantage. They should have been able to crush this small group, so what happened? "I really didn't expect that this was the trump card you spoke of. You taught these people this formation. We might actually defeat them after all." President Booth took a deep breath and said, "If I'm not mistaken, this should be the devil-suppressing ring of the Buddhist sect, but it doesn't look like it. Logically speaking, that formation isn't usually that strong. What formation is this?" "Actually, it's just the demon-subduing ring. I just merged it with the Heaven and Earth 3 Talents formation and improved it, forming the latest version. Its power is a lot higher now. In group battles, it can form 360 degrees without any blind spots. Its power can be maximized," James said faintly. "With practice, the effect can be pretty good. With the devil subduing ring, the 3 people can even fight a 3rd layer of heavenly human stage expert for a short period of time." When the Tao Gate was attacked by the 3 large sects, it had created an incomplete formation. However, I didn't know much about it at the time.
It was just a preliminary superposition of the formation, and it was operated by Wayne Casey. But now, I'm the divine formation master. It's a piece of cake for me to modify and create another formation.
You created it yourself?
President Booth widened his eyes. He didn't know what to say. This guy, how could he know everything? Now's not the time to discuss this. It's coming. Sensing the dense crowd heading towards him, James's tone turned serious. He turned to President Booth, Chris, and the others, said in a deep voice, "There are still dozens of third-layer experts among them. These people are the most dangerous ones. They're all focused on me. I will lure them away and leave the rest to you."
Boss, have you gone mad? You're still a peak-grade Grandmaster stage expert, and you're fighting dozens of third-stage experts by yourself. How could you defeat them?
Chris widened his eyes in shock. Peak Great Grandmaster stage versus third layer of Heavenly Human stage? How many realms had he broken through? And most importantly, this wasn't a single person but dozens of them. How could he fight them? Although he knew that James was strong enough, even if it was a duel between him and a third layer stage, he had no doubt that James would win. But for a few dozen people, this was a completely different story. There's no other way. James shrugged indifferently. He said, "This battle must be fought either way, and I have to do it. This is the opportunity for me to break through. But don't be too optimistic. I won't be able to lure any of the third layer stage experts away. After all, you have a third layer stage on your side. They will definitely leave someone behind to deal with you."
Wait, you want to use the pressure of dozens of third-layer of Heavenly Human stage experts to break through? You're truly a madman, even crazier than me,
Chris said sincerely, taking in a breath of cold air. While he was speaking, James turned serious as he looked at the dozens of third-layer experts who were rushing towards him. He let out a cold laugh. "Aren't you all here to kill me? Well, come and get me." As he spoke, he ran in the opposite direction. Petrenko frowned and said,
"There are a total of 36 third-layer of Heavenly Human stage experts on your side. 6 of them will stay on this side while the rest will chase after the kid. What do the 2 of you think? This kid is definitely not easy to deal with. Although I think that the 30 experts are useless, it's better to be safe than sorry. It's better to go in case that kid has any tricks up his sleeve." The fat on Pold's body trembled as he spoke in a deep voice. At this moment, even Andrew didn't say anything. The 3 of them set up a plan. Their facial expressions changed. No one was left behind. They all rushed towards the direction where James had escaped. He was their main target. They could ignore the rest of them. 30 third layer of Heavenly Human stage experts, huh? This is really tricky. James's face turned serious when he saw the group of people rushing towards him. With his current strength, he might die if he was to fight so many of them at the same time. But he had no other choice. James, are you out of your mind? It might not be difficult for you to deal with a second layer stage now, but if it's a third layer, you'd have to fight for your life. You might not be able to defeat him even with 100% of your strength, but now there are 30 of them. You're playing with fire,
The Alaric Lee said quickly.
I know, but I have to take advantage of this opportunity. I have to find the right moment of enlightenment before making a breakthrough. You should know that in this world, if you don't count the people in Small Cloud Heaven, there is no threat to me. If I can't take this opportunity to break through to the Heavenly Human stage, what else can I use as a big enough challenge?
James said in a deep voice.
At a time like this, not breaking through to the next level is as good as death. In order to survive, I have to put my life on the line. Besides, it's not that easy for them to take my life. You're forcing yourself too much, Alaric Lee sighed helplessly. It knew the seriousness of the matter, so there was no way to refute it. There was also no way to make James give up on this idea.
Watching him walk all the way here felt sad for him. James was risking everything. In fact, it wasn't because of anything else, it was just to live. It was to protect the people he should protect.
James, you don't have to run anymore. You won't be able to escape anywhere.
Petrenko chased after James with his men. He said in a mocking tone,
No matter where you run to, you won't change your fate. You're lucky that 30 third-layer experts have come to kill you alone.
I can't bear such luck. Not long after that, James stopped and turned around. He calmly looked at the crowd and said with a grin, Besides, I never thought of escaping. I just wanted to find a place where no one would disturb us for a proper fight.
Why are you smiling? I don't know if you were born with a big heart or no brain.
Andrew crossed his arms over his chest and looked at James mockingly. He said,
However, it is wise for you not to run away.
I know. James smiled and said, I heard that you had a compass made by the West family. Shows the location of the inheritance of the human emperor. As long as you have this compass, you will always be able to find me, so there's no need for me to run.
I see you know a lot.
Petrenko's pupils shrank and he said with a smile,
Since you know that, it makes it easy. Are you going to resist to the end or will you surrender without putting up a fight? Perhaps you're a genius, but only here. This world is much bigger than you think. Although treasures are good, without absolute strength, you will be killed. If you know what's good for you, you will surrender now. Perhaps later, once we've taken away your treasures, we'll leave you be. Otherwise, your fate will be very miserable. Unfortunately, I heard that you have a group of girlfriends, right? Are all of them gorgeous? If you die, what shall we do with them?
Pold said with a smile. James looked at Petrenko and Pold with sarcasm and said, You idiots. You're attempting such petty tricks on me. You're talking to me, but you still haven't attacked. I heard a rumor that you want to extract the inheritance of the human emperor. Then the heir can't die. If he does, the heir will disappear, and you will have to wait another 1,000 years. Your behavior just now confirms the rumor's true, so you can't kill me no matter what. As soon as he said that, Petrenko, Andrew, and Pold's faces changed drastically. They didn't expect James to know all this. Indeed, it was precisely because they couldn't kill him that they were attacking him. If they killed James, all their efforts would be in vain, and they wouldn't be able to explain it to their superiors. So this is a strange situation. Even if I provoke you, you can't touch me. James grinned, licked his lips, and said, Well, aren't you in trouble? You can't kill me, but I can kill you. Before he finished his words, the aura on his body exploded. Powerful genuine chi circulated crazily and turned into mist, materializing a miniature earth idol that condensed on James's body. It was only a little bit higher than him and perfectly wrapped James within it. The red and blue colors on it were especially conspicuous. Layers of windblade were still lingering around his body.
Is this the earth idol of the Buddhist sect? No, it can't be. Earth idols aren't this small. This thing on the guy's body has condensed a big amount of genuine chi, and it also carries 3 natural elements. It's completely compressed together, but it hasn't exploded. What kind of strange thing is this?
When they saw James's indestructible tyrannical body, the hearts of the 30-odd men trembled. Even though they had all reached the 3rd layer of the heavenly human stage, they were still scared. This is the indestructible tyrannical body that I created for myself. It's time for all of you to have a taste of its power. A bright light flashed in James's eyes. He clenched his fist tightly, stomped his foot on the ground, and flew up into the sky. A terrifying chi fell from the sky, aiming at Petrenko and the other 2 men. Weighty leg! Seeing this boundless strength, the men's faces turned cold. Without any hesitation, they flew backwards, having not even the slightest desire to receive this attack. Bang! With a loud sound, the dust and dirt rose up in the air. Crushed stones flew in all directions.
The huge force shook the ground and created a huge shockwave.
Hey, didn't you guys come to deal with me? Since you're strong enough, then come and take a hit from me.
James looked at the three men and sneered. He took two chains out of nowhere and threw them at the three men.
Proud binding chains. Damn you. How dare you look down on me?
Andrew was now angry. A huge scythe of the death god appeared in his hand. It was dragging a long chain behind it. And then Andrew swung it at James.
Spinning scythe,
Andrew shouted. The huge scythe looked like it was going to harvest everyone's lives. It was filled with bloodlust and madness. The huge scythe bounced off one of James's chains and flew up in the air, aiming at James's head. James's pupils constricted when he saw this attack. He leaned back and dodged the scythe. Andrew was quite strong as the second layer of Heavenly Human stage. James had also discovered that Andrew was probably a genius in the small cloud heaven. A second layer of Heavenly Human stage, a skeletal age that was less than 50 years old, was already quite terrifying. Perhaps many people could reach the third step heaven at the age of 30 under great efforts of the family or sect, but reaching the Heavenly Human stage was extremely difficult. Without sufficient comprehension, without the help of pills, some people wouldn't break through for decades. Andrew wasn't surprised at all at how James dodged the attack. A cold smile emerged on his face, and he shouted in a deep voice, "Fatty, show me what you're capable of." Cold understood what he meant. He took out a decapitation blade from his storage ring and slashed at the ground.
Earth explosion blade cut.
With a swing of the blade, a deep ravine appeared in the ground. It quickly extended towards James. Right at this moment, James's heart suddenly skipped a beat. The soil under his feet instantly exploded, creating a huge pit that was several feet deep. A terrifying explosive force poured onto James's body. Andrew laughed loudly. He forcefully pulled his hand, and the scythe flew back from behind James like a meat grinder. It swept across his waist, as if it were going to cut him in half.
James, if you don't have a foothold, your body will be out of control. You have to resist the power of the explosion, and you also have to deal with my flying scythe behind you. You're finished.
Andrew laughed ferociously. He was delighted. The marks on the ground were a decoy. The chi sword had already entered the ground, and under perfect control, it detonated many chi swords. But the explosion started from the inside, and the power was relatively limited. This also gave him a chance to cooperate. Caught off guard, James had no way to escape.
You're too naive. You're just a mere second layer of the Heavenly Human stage, and you want to injure me? You're not strong enough.
There was no panic on James's face. Cold air surged under his feet and instantly froze the large hole. The explosive force caused by a pulled strike was completely absorbed by the indestructible tyrannical body, and James wasn't injured at all. In the next moment, James didn't even look at him. A genuine chi palm grew out from his indestructible tyrannical body. He grabbed the spinning scythe and didn't move at all.
What? The foothold of the ice layer, a third hand formed by the genuine chi.
Andrew's eyes almost popped out when he saw this. Their coordination was perfect, but he didn't expect this guy to break so easily. It was unbelievable. Most importantly, what the hell was this palm condensed from the back of the genuine chi? Normally, if one wanted to achieve this true chi formation, they would only be able to do it by condensing a palm. After all, the palm was the most flexible part of the body and had the most acupuncture points. It was relatively easy to do this. But how could this guy condense a palm from his back? What kind of genuine chi control ability was this? Could all of his acupuncture points freely condense the true chi formation?
Now's not the time for you to be shocked. Not bad coordination, but unfortunately, his strength is far from enough. He'll become a joke.
James sneered. His palm fiercely grabbed the chain that was connected to the scythe.
He pulled the chain and shouted sternly, "Come here."
This is not good.
Andrew's face changed drastically when he felt the tremendous force pulling him. He quickly let go of his grip, but his body still fell towards James.
Do you think letting go will help?
James said in disdain. He made another grabbing motion with his hand.
Concept of wind. Floating acupuncture point of breathing.
In an instant, a strong force completely enveloped Andrew. Under the force of the strong wind, he couldn't control his body and flew towards James.
Damn you! Damn you!
Andrew was shocked and furious. He gritted his teeth and threw a punch at James.
You're still putting up a fight. How stubborn. You're under my control now. What's the point of struggling?
James looked at Andrew mockingly. He stretched out his other hand and unleashed the True Chief formation. A flaming palm grabbed Andrew by the neck and his fist stopped a foot away from James's head. A mouthful of blood flew out and the huge force broke Andrew's neck. He stared at James with his eyes wide open, filled with resentment.
Sir!
The third layer of heavenly human stage experts that Andrew had brought with him had turned pale with fright. To capture James alive, these experts were secretly preparing a formation, and they couldn't move at all. But who knew James would be so powerful? He had severely injured Andrew in just a few rounds.
Don't look at me like that. You came from small cloud heaven, but in my eyes, you're nothing more than trash. You're at the level of the 4 great kings, but you're far from qualified,
James said faintly.
From the moment I came here, these 30 people have been standing in a certain pattern. Although their movements were concealed, the energy that was injected into the ground from their bodies couldn't fool me. According to the movements of the genuine Shi, if I'm not wrong, this should be the Meru formation. 30 people forming a formation in front of me. Don't worry, your death won't be in vain. As I rise, more and more of your people will follow you.
After saying that, James showed no mercy. The force in his hand erupted and broke Andrew's neck.
You killed him.
Pold and Petrenko stared in disbelief. The corners of their mouths were trembling. Andrew's status was similar to theirs, but he died in front of them. They couldn't believe it. Most importantly, James was terrifyingly strong and simply ruthless.
So be it. He's just a piece of trash, not worth mentioning at all, and you are also gonna die. So don't feel sorry for him.
James smiled and drew out his wishful steel staff. He said,
I don't want to waste any more time. I will send all of you on your way.